Well, the haters gonna hate, 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 and the faker's gonna fake, 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 baby. I'm just gonna make, making luck, a Dominion podcast.
Welcome to Making Luck, a Dominion podcast.
Yeah, that's good.
I am Jake, and joined always by host number 1 of 2.
Is that me?
Alphabetically.
Oh, yeah, that's me. Hey, I'm Adam.
Yeah.
Alphabetically.
I'm Jake alphabetically.
You can just call me Alphabetical Adam.
A fun fact, if we assign this meritocracy exclusively to the alphabetical value of your name, Adam is superior to me in every way.
Wow!
Wait, what's your middle name?
Michael?
Ah, crap, you got me there too.
Yeah, you don't become world champion just for showing up and not falling asleep during 3-player games at Dominion. You gotta have the right name if you're catching what I'm throwing.
Yeah, it helps you get in the right brackets. It also helps a lot of people join your tables on the Dominion client.
Yeah.
Because you show up at the top of the list.
Yeah. I open a table and, I have 10 people sit down and I have to kick them, and I stopped feeling bad a long time ago.
Yeah, he doesn't feel anything anymore, actually.
Yeah. Once you die inside, a lot of life gets simpler, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good times. Well, anyway.
Yeah.
So, the raffle last time. Let's talk about the raffle, because I finally figured out a part of my computer to give to people. I'm excited about this.
Absolutely. So, as always, the last time that we did the raffle, we were giving away part of Adam's computer. And the winner of this raffle is actually our first 2-time raffle champion.
Ooh.
Congratulations, Adam Horton's wife. You win part of Adam's computer.
Wow! Wait, hold on. Wait a second. How did she win? But no, this isn't cool. Has she been stuffing the ballot? What are you doing with my wife behind my back, huh?
Listen, Adam, you owe her part of the computer. That's how it is.
Okay, well, that's fine. I mean, I've got some dust that's stuck to my cooling fan system that I can pull off, and it looks great. It might even have some cat hairs in it, which I know my wife would be excited about, because our cat is luxurious and striped.
She might even take them to the kitchen wall.
Some similar things have been known to happen.
Yeah.
And I guess Megan and I are going to have a little talksy about...
Well, before we get into marriage counseling and the like, we are going to announce the winner of next week's raffle is actually going to get a very special prize, Adam's TV. And we are going to be very excited to give that away.
They're not getting Adam's TV.
Adam's television set will go to the next person who wins
Adam's
our raffle
television
on
set
Making
will
Luck,
not be
a Dominion podcast.
Dominion podcast. Adam's television set will not be going to that person, okay? My television set will be staying right where it is.
He has to sleep sometime.
Right there. Right there, you see that?
That's the TV you could win.
No, that's not the TV you could win. That's a TV that you can't win because it's my TV.
We'll see. Alright, so...
I didn't see you steal the dust from my computer, brah.
Yeah, you're not gonna see it at all. If you know what I mean.
Am I supposed to be afraid?
You're supposed to sleep sometime.
Ooh, I'll sleep in a few hours. Okay.
All right. So, speaking of sleeping, 3-player Dominion.
Yeah, we didn't play any 3-player games with the Last Kingdom, but with the bread from the last time, we played some 2-player games. Given that it had Ambassador, I just wouldn't recommend ever playing a 3-player game.
Ever, with or without Ambassador. But this one had Ambassador, so definitely don't play it with 3.
Okay, let's read the cards. So we had Overlord, Royal Blacksmith, Ambassador, Lookout, Wishing Well, Envoy, Procession, City, Governor, Haggler. We had Arena and Triumphal Arch. Once again, for our audio-only listeners of Making Luck, a Dominion podcast. That voice changes every time, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
I'm kind of always excited to hear it.
Is that part of the charm?
You might call it that.
Yeah.
That's really up to them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Let me know, which is your favorite voice? And also Overlord, Royal Blacksmith, Ambassador, Lookout, Wishing Well, Envoy, Procession, City, Governor, Haggler. We had Arena and Triumphal Arch. And last time, we had talked about I mean, we both agreed that Ambassador War was pretty important here.
Yeah, as it pretty much always is.
That's a thing. The governors were probably a lot of the payload you were going to be going into. I mean, there's no plus buy, so like the only way to get more than one card in a province in a turn is either to turn on the cities all the way or go governors.
Yeah, and once you turn on the cities all the way here, it's probably too dangerous of a move to make without your opponent just winning on his next turn.
Right.
Which kind of ties into last week's episode, which was endgame play. I do want to make a quick side note that if you are not really clear what we mean by Ambassador War, there is an article on Ambassador that's fantastic and will explain why it's actually such a powerful card and the centerpiece of most boards where you see it. And Adam has linked it to his Reddit. I'm sure we can link it in the comments as well.
Yeah, it's one of the best Dominion articles I've ever read. Ambassador's a good card.
Yeah, and if you're somebody who has not really felt the full brunt of Ambassador before, make sure you feel the brunt of it in that article and not in a game of Dominion that you didn't understand.
I don't know. I like losing Dominion. No, I don't. That's a lie. That's not true.
Oh, you don't like losing to Ambassador either. Those are miserable.
Yeah.
Those feel bad. So, yeah, we agreed that the Ambassador War was going to be pretty important, and I think we also agreed that Governor was going to be the main vehicle for actually winning the game. Yeah. And that's kind of where our agreement ceased in a lot of ways, I think. But we went back and forth a little bit on Overlords and how important they were.
Yeah, like a lot of times when you're looking to open with an Overlord, you're looking for like an attack or like a trashing card that you wouldn't be able to otherwise have. And so I was waffling a bit on if I wanted to open with an Overlord. I thought maybe Double Ambassador or Ambassador Lookout to open with would be pretty good. But it turns out that what I think was best here was opening with an Overlord. So yeah, I missed that one. And actually there was a comment we had from Gazbag who did a pretty good job of explaining like why you want to open Overlord. So like there's this period of the game, the first several turns, when you're just shoving cards back in the supply and flinging them at your opponent with the Ambassador.
Right.
And during that period of the game, you're not going to be making very much money on your turns.
The opening salvos of the Ambassador War are typically not a very prosperous few turns.
Yeah, not for many people's dominions while they're busy with politics.
Especially here because you have Overlord debt, but moving on to why that's important.
Well, yeah, but it turns out that like if you're just going to make $1 or $2 a turn, you're not doing much anyway.
Yeah.
So like having the debt isn't a huge encumbrance.
No, it's really not.
So like you open with an Overlord, you have the debt, and it's fine because you're just mostly thinning and getting control over your deck. And so like you pay off the whatever debt you can when you can. And then when you don't have any debt and you can buy a card, you just buy another Overlord. And you kind of do this until you have a lot of Overlords and you have control over your deck.
And the Overlords were really good at every single phase of the game, too. The thing about this kingdom is that the tools are there to do anything. We actually were trying to figure out why one of us won when we won, and it turned out that the only really consistent pattern we could see, it wasn't like colliding Overlord with Lookout on turn 3 or what have you. It was just who got more Overlords, because it doesn't almost matter what kind of draws you get here. Overlord has the tools to make your dream turn happen every turn. You can play it as ambassadors in the early game. You can play it as a city if you happen to draw an envoy. You can play it as procession if you happen to want to play your lookout for the last time. It's just a really versatile and fantastic card here.
The fact that it's the same card and it transitions from a role of heavy deck control in the early game, and then you can all of a sudden just start playing it as governor. And now it's a payload card, and you don't have to have to change the physical card in your deck. That's a big deal in a game that is so tight in terms of deck control because of Ambassador, and then so explosive in terms of payload because of Governor. So, I mean, I tried like getting a real Ambassador or Lookout or Governor just to try and save a few dollars, but like that, it just didn't seem to matter all that much.
No.
Overlord is just a really good card here.
Especially because the main means of acquiring provinces was trashing gold into province from governor, so money almost only mattered to pay off debt here. Like, it didn't really matter when you... Like, you kind of wanted to keep getting overlords if they were available.
Right. I mean, you want to pay off your debt so you can get more overlords, right?
Right. That's the only reason that you pay off the debt here is... So...
Just get more overlords.
Yeah. Procession is a very good and we think underused card, and it was no less so here. A lot of the time we played Overlord as Procession rather than buy an actual one, but it was... You know, that turn where you've got a kind of crappy shuffle to get through, and you procession your envoy into another governor, it's pretty solid.
It feels good when you can draw the cards you gain off procession. And if you process envoy, you just drew a buttload of cards. So there's a chance you can do that.
Yeah. So, yeah, this was a really interesting board, and in a 2-player game, we definitely recommend you try it out. And... let us know what you think. Let us know if you think we missed anything, too. If you think that there's anything you wish we talked about here.
Yeah, as far as endgame play goes...
oh, right, yeah.
Usually the person who was ahead just could green first and then win. And they do that by starting off by getting 3 provinces, which we said was good last time. So, yeah. Bread. Sandwich podcast.
Typically, yeah, when you have the opportunity to buy 3 provinces, you probably do that. If you have the opportunity to buy 4 provinces, that's great, but you might question why you haven't started greening before that point. Because if you had the opportunity to buy 4 provinces, you might have been able to win a couple of turns earlier just by
It depends on a lot, but I mean, 3 is certainly enough to get the job done. Once you've opened with 3 provinces and are threatening to get 3 again next turn,
then your opponent's on the back foot. Yeah, definitely. Also, the thing about greening early here was that a lot of your vehicle for greening was putting silver into your opponent's deck, and once you're at that point in the game, normally silver's a good card, but once you're at like the end game where you're doing that, your opponent really doesn't want the silver because they have to draw through it.
Yeah, like a lot of times I find that, you know, when my opponent gains gold and there's still governors left, I'm happy because I can remodel silvers into governor, and then I have more governors, but that didn't matter because Overlord's a card.
Right.
Oops.
There were almost 20 governors here, in a way.
There were like 55 governors.
There were like 55 governors.
Yeah.
Felt just like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this kingdom really reminded me of, like, you know, have you ever been to Seattle to the Pike Place Market and you go to the fish stores there?
That was a really specific and leading question. No, I haven't, Adam. What's that like?
So, like, I mean, if you've ever gotten, like, a lobster roll or, like, a po' boy down south, like, they come on this bread that's, like, kind of a baguette, but it's really fluffy, and it's kind of, like, got that buttery brush thing on the outside. It's real good.
Ooh, it almost sounds like it was ill-gotten.
Oh, I was thinking, like, it would be great if you put, like, something from the sea in that sandwich.
Like a hag.
Yeah. Sea Hag lunch meat?
Alright, so Sea Hag lunch meat. Today we're talking about 2 cards, Sea Hag and Ill-Gotten Gains.
Yeah.
These are both cards that are cursors, and they're cursors that have a very high opportunity cost. And they're also cards that will have a widely variable impact on the game based on what's going on with the rest of the kingdom. There are going to be games where they absolutely dominate, and games where you can safely ignore them, or feel good about ignoring them, or bad if you bought them.
Yeah, so why don't we read the text of these bad boys real quick? I think we got a couple of things to say that apply to both of them, and then we might do some more specific discussion. So, Sea Hag, I want to read Sea Hag because the lady on the card, her name is Margaret. Yeah. And the 2 of us have a history.
Yeah, I know that she's a very special lady in your life.
Yeah, it's I gotta say, how can anyone resist that pink hair with that purple headband?
You know, I never really noticed it, but she's kind of like an older version of an anime character. Like, she's got the well, like any anime that has like some pink-haired lady. I like to think that
like Sailor Chibi Moon?
Yeah, or like Future Diary.
She was so annoying. Chibi Moon was like my least favorite. She's not even a Sailor Scout. Sorry, Sailor Mercury for life. Sailor Mercury was by far my favorite Sailor Scout. I had a crush on her when I was in high school. Hashtag no shame.
That's true. He's looking me straight in the eye while he's saying this. But yeah, I like to think that when the anime character with the pink hair is done with the anime and she gets to go live out her life, eventually she starts gaining some weight and, you know, her glory days are behind her and she turns into Sea Hag.
She changes her name to Margaret.
Margaret.
Yeah.
Margaret the Sea Hag.
So anyway, it's a $4 action. It's from the Seaside expansion. And it says, each other player discards the top card of their deck, then gains a curse onto their deck.
Yeah, it does say that.
That's
pretty
so
brutal.
voluptuous.
So the other one we're going to talk about is Ill-Gotten Gains, and it's a treasure from the Hinterlands expansion. It costs 5, and it gives you $1. That's right, it's a 5-cost copper. When you play this, you may gain a copper to your hand, and then you can play that copper so you can kind of look at it as a silver that makes your deck worse. Now, when you gain this, each other player gains a curse. That's Ill-Gotten Gains.
Yeah.
5-cost copper, and when you gain it, everyone else gains a curse.
Yeah. So, like, curses are bad, right?
Yeah, you almost never want them. You never want them.
You never want curses. All right, let's talk about our next kingdom.
Yeah, Apothecary. No, so, yeah, I mean, I think it would actually be some pretty interesting design space as a side note if there was ever a card that, like, rewarded you for playing it with a curse or something, because that would turn a lot of other things on their head.
Wait, you mean Quest?
That actually did it.
Everyone knows. Everyone knows that when Quest is out, you completely ignore junking attacks.
Oh yeah, because they're just fueling your Quest engine.
Yeah, I mean that's obvious.
Yeah, so
I think these cards are a testament to how good junking is, right? Because like Sea Hag, she doesn't do anything, and she takes an action.
yeah,
And like that's it's good some of the time because giving curses is so bad. And like Ig, it sucks. It's way worse than silver and costs way more. But like you would buy this just to give your opponent a purple. Like that's how good junking is. These cards suck, but like sometimes they're worth it because you need to give out those purples.
yeah. Sea Hag takes up your terminal action, and it takes up a slot in your deck, and it takes up a slot in your hand. In other words, it reduces your hand size by 1. And IGG is basically a junker for your opponent, but it's also a junker for you. It's giving you less bad junk, but it's still junk. So we're going to talk about how a lot of people look at these attacks as either on or off, in that it's not like militia that does something all the time. They're attacks that either will completely hamstring your opponent or do nothing at all. I actually only think that's half true of these.
Well, I mean, depending on what you mean by hamstring and nothing at all and half and true and only, then yes, I agree with you.
Define with.
So, like, a lot of cursors are good enough cards, like Witch.
Yeah.
That you put them in the deck, even
Not
if
to
there are
bank.
even if there's ways to deal with the curses, to trash the curses, you still do it because it slows your opponent down enough, and like, these cards are decent enough. They're not all that bad for your deck. So a lot of the other cursors are like this, but Sea Hag and Ig are worse. They're not nearly as powerful as all of the other cursors in the game. That's just a fact.
And you're going to hear us come back to the term a few times during this episode, opportunity cost. Most of us probably know what that means, but if you don't, it's basically whatever you gave up by going for something. Whatever the next best option if you hadn't done that. So the opportunity cost of Sea Hag is at least a silver. If you had 4, you could have bought a silver 2 or some other 4 cost.
Like potion.
Right.
Or rats.
Or rats. Yeah, so the opportunity cost as well as your terminal action, if you draw it with another terminal,
It's super gross.
Yeah, the cost is playing it instead. The opportunity cost of IGG is even higher. You have to spend a $5 buy on it, and it's usually a really bad card. Not always, but usually. And so what else could you have bought instead, and would that have been better to help you win the game than giving your opponent a curse?
Yeah, so, like, I mean, the opportunity cost is there for all the junkers, and it's especially present for these guys because they suck.
Right.
So a lot of times, when there's no way to get rid of the curses, of course the opportunity is worth it because the curses suck.
Yeah.
They were even worse than Sea Hag. Like, I would prefer to have a Sea Hag in my deck than to have a curse. I think in pretty much every situation.
Right. Unless every situation.
Yeah. So it turns out that at least in my book, at least for these two cards, Sea Hag and Ig. Ig is like IGG, ill-gotten gains. Ig. It's funny.
Ig. Yeah.
But I call it Ig.
Right.
It turns out that the metric that I use for whether or not I even want to bother with these cards is how easy is it to get rid of the curses. So you want to look what happens when you do trash the curses and compare it to what happens when you play the card Sea Hag or buy the card Ig.
Yeah.
That gives out the curses, and this is actually a pretty good comparison to make, I think.
Yeah, you can also, we've talked before about how time in the Land of Dominion actually passes in shuffles. You can look at what happens more often, your opponent gaining a curse or your opponent trashing or mitigating a curse somehow. If you're not giving your opponent curses much more often per shuffle than they are able to mitigate them or trash them, then it was definitely a mistake to go for those junkers.
Sure. And so there's one final distinction I want to make before talking about the card specifically, is when we say ignorable or ignorable. Yeah? Get it?
I get it.
Yeah, good. That was pretty funny. So there's when you say ignorable, and like when I say, oh, well, I didn't buy Sea Hag and I won, that's not exactly what I mean. So, like, a lot of times, just because the card is on the board will cause me to play differently. I might thin and have more tight deck control over my deck for longer than I normally would in order to accommodate for the fact that, at any moment my opponent could pick up this card and start junking me, and I need to be ready for that.
Yeah, it also might mean that, in the same respect as an extension of that you green later. That's kind of the same thing as what Adam's saying, but it means that the first few times you hit 8, you might not buy a province, because as soon as you do, if your opponent stayed thin and starts buying Sea Hag, you might never get another one.
Sure, and then there's the other side of that equation as well, where if I'm building my deck and I've thinned and I've decided, it's not worth it to go for the Sea Hag, it's the opportunity cost is too high.
Yeah.
Then I see my opponent and they don't invest in thinning at all.
Or the ill-gotten gains in this scenario as well.
Sure, it works for both of them.
Yeah.
But they're not investing in getting thin like this, so all of a sudden I see their deck is vulnerable to junking. They don't have the deck control, and these curses are going to hurt them a lot. Then, in that case, I might go for the Sea Hag when I might otherwise not have done that.
Yeah, and there's a sweeping point we can make about both of these cards, too. And that's that if there is really good, strong thinning or trashing options, then you pretty much don't go for these.
Yeah.
It almost doesn't even enter into the equation. And if there's no trashing at all, you pretty much definitely do go for these. That almost isn't a question that you ask. The interesting question is when there is trashing and it's not very good for it. Like, it doesn't want to hit curses, or it's expensive or slow or something. And in those cases, what Adam's talking about, waiting for your opponent to fail to thin and then going for the Sea Hag or the IGG, that's a really smart play. It does rely, though, on your opponent making a mistake, because they made a mistake to do that. So that's not a strategy. That's a tactic. That's not something you want to go into the game relying on happening. That's
true, but that consideration will make you play differently in order to prevent your opponent from doing that to you. So it's
absolutely,
it's a preventative measure from you making that mistake. Yeah. And then also, it's yet another reason to not play a deck that has low deck control, even if you think it's better.
Yeah, it's kind of like the nuclear option of Dominion. Yeah. It's like the threat of it being there is almost more impactful than it actually being there.
That's actually a really good analogy. I don't know if you were kidding at all, but I actually think that's a really good analogy.
No, yeah, it is kind of. It feels that way. It feels like you're kind of in a Cold War.
So at one point,
until the curses start flinging.
Then it's a
then it's an actual war. Yeah.
So at one point I mapped it out and I did a conservative estimate on what percentage of games do I think I would not want to go for Sea Hag or Ig?
Was it 55%?
It was 55% was like my conservative. Like, it is at least 55%.
Okay, yeah. No, I mean, that's true. I'd agree with that.
And this is like really back of the napkin. The numbers are fuzzy, but like I convinced myself that like at least 55% of games were like, I see the Sea Hag and like I'm not going for it. I see the Ig and I'm not going to bother.
Yeah. Now, I will say that the times when Sea Hag or IgG does turn out to be impactful or devastating to your opponent, those times are very illustrated and very, very prominent in your mind. So a lot of people might even think that these are better more often than they are, because those times when they are good, they burn.
Yeah, so like with Ig in particular, there's this mentality I hear a lot of people say that like Ig just turns every game you see it into this Ig rush, and there's like this canonical Ig rush.
Yeah.
So like the Ig rush goes like this: you open double silver and you just pile the Igs. You get all the Igs.
If you go 5-2, you open Ig whatever.
That feels a lot
better.
worse for your opponent.
Yeah.
So, yeah, better for you, worse for your opponent.
Right.
And so you get all the Igs, all 10 of them. They're gone. The curses are in your opponent's deck, and then 2 piles are empty because the Igs are gone and the purples are gone, and that holds for any number of players.
Yeah. So the IgG rush is kind of the elephant in the room when we're talking about Ig. It's what a lot of people know it from, and it's how a lot of people actually found out that it could be a good card or a powerful card when they read it. Because you read the text of Ig, if that doesn't immediately flow through your mind of the 3 pile, you know immediately it's terrible, right?
Yeah, the duchies being the 3rd pile. It doesn't have to be duchies, but like duchies right there, it's
now,
significant.
Adam has said a few times that you pretty much never want to begin a game of Dominion and say, I'm going to win this way, especially if you're talking about a 3 pile.
Yeah.
And I think that that's true 75% of the time at least. And I think IgG, if you've decided that the rush is good, is the one real exception to that. That's where you actually say, I'm going to win the game on a 3 pile, because you can actually do that way, and it requires a commitment from turn 1 or 2. And Adam already kind of illustrated what it looks like, but just to kind of get into the details of it, the IgG pile is kind of linked to the curse pile in some respects. Once the ill-gotten gains run out, the curses run out too, except for the presence of Traitor, which that's the only card I believe that keeps them from leaving the pile.
We're an ambassador.
Well, and does Ambassador, because Ambassador puts it back and then you gain it.
Yeah, but then everyone can have a lighthouse in play.
Oh, God, yes.
I did it! I found the edge! Okay.
Yeah, so, yeah, the IgG pile is kind of linked to the curse pile, and if you get all or most of the ill-gotten gains in that respect, and the game is just going to end on that 3rd pile, you've got 2 real distinct advantages for actually winning. You've got a better deck. It's still a really bad deck, but it has a bunch of IgGs which can function as silver if they have to, and your opponent has a lot fewer points because they have a bunch of curses. So you have this vision in your mind of winning it that way, and that can be a really powerful strategy. It's worth noting that it's also extremely fragile.
So, you said it was a really powerful strategy, and I'm going to disagree with that. I don't think it's powerful.
Okay. I think it's only powerful relative to the other options it creates or shuts down.
Okay, sure.
In terms of speed and junking.
Speed! Okay, so let's talk about speed for a minute, because a lot of people say the Ig Rush is really fast.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if everyone's going for it, then yes, it's going to be fast. If every player in the game is buying the same cards from the same 3 piles...
All of the 2 people in the game are buying the same cards from the same 3 piles.
Sure. If they're all doing that, then those piles are going to get empty super fast, especially if one pile kind of counts for 2, right?
Yeah.
So yes, that's going to be fast. But if you're not doing that, when this Ig Rush is uncontested, it's actually really slow. Because, like, let's say turns 1 and 2, you open double silver. Let's say the rush gets perfect draws. So the next 10 turns, they hit 5 and they get an egg. Now, that's not going to happen, but let's say perfect draws, it happens.
Okay.
2 turns for silvers, 10 turns for eggs, 8 turns for duchies. 20 turns, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you've gotten 8 duchies, so that's 24 points. And you got, you say you didn't trash your starting. So it's 27 points, and they have 10 purples they have to deal with.
Yeah.
That's 20 turns. 20 turns is so many turns.
That's a lot of turns, and it's actually a really good point. It leads into sort of the considerations for whether or not this is a good strategy to go for. The speed is actually not that fast in a vacuum. It needs to be fast relative to what else is going on. We say that the IgG rush strategy is a fast rush because it's ending the game and it's shutting down your opponent's options to do anything quickly at the same time as it's doing that. So it's not that it's fast by itself compared to other strategies, it's fast compared to what's going to be available on that board. And if other things are available that outpace it, of course, it wasn't the best call to go for.
Okay, so then I'm just going to go out and say that, like, I don't think rush is a very good word to describe it. Because, like,
sure,
if there's no way to trash the curses, and I have no other way to give them to you besides Ig, then, yes, I'm going to give you purples with Ig, because giving purples is good. And then, like, once the purples are gone, then I'm going to figure out how I win the game. And, like, whatever support I have, well, it didn't really matter because I spent all my turns buying Ig, so it's not flexible at all. But,
it's
like,
not.
Yeah, you go for
pivot.
duchies, and then and that's what you do. Or sometimes you might spike a province if you opened with some card that helps you, like Salvager or whatever.
Yeah, Adam brought up earlier that when he was talking about how it's not actually fast, how the speed is kind of an illusion, it's got a very low point ceiling as well. So the fragility of this strategy has to do as much with its low desired points as it does with its inability to pivot. And it doesn't really have the ability to pivot. It has a lot of stop cards, and the best stop card creates more stop cards for the deck. So it's really dependent on your opponent not finding a way to deal with the purples and then buy provinces. Like, if he gets 3, you're kind of boned.
Yeah, so, I mean, really, with almost any way out there of dealing with curses, pretty much any way of dealing with the curses, I'm not gonna go for this.
Right.
It's just such a high opportunity cost to go for the Ig.
Well, it relies on a few things. So if you can hit 5 reliably, that'll help the strategy along. Luckily, IgG helps with this.
Yeah.
Typically, when you're playing that strategy, you only gain the optional copper off of IgG under 2 scenarios. A, you need it to hit 5. Easy. B, you are playing with Gardens, and Gardens is your pile instead of Duchies. Worth noting with Ig, there's some really good support for it to be found in Kingdom green cards.
I really think Gardens is at the top of the list in terms of support for Ig, because it raises that point ceiling.
I actually disagree with that, but we can get into what I think are a little stronger for Ig.
Really? Because, like,
Yeah,
Gardens is amazing. Ig and Gardens would actually make me consider going for Igs. I mean,
I think it's too slow.
It can incorporate some other stuff. I mean, with Gardens, you're not necessarily always trying to be fast.
Well, right. I mean, so when I say it's too slow, I mean compared to the other options I'm going to talk about. Not if Ig and Gardens are out, yes, I'm going for Gardens over the Duchies. But I'm talking about some of these other ones that I might consider over Gardens.
Well, without 10 cards, it's really tough to say. But, like, I think Gardens is at the top of my list. I think the other one at the top of the list is Salvager. Because Salvager can trash Ig, and then you can buy Province, and that gets you more points. And really, I'm looking for support that costs less than 5, because if you're going for the Ig Rush, all of your $5+ buys are going to be spent on Ig until the Igs are gone.
Yeah.
And then you're getting points.
Right, and there are some other kind of soft support elements to an Ig strategy, like if there are terminal silvers in the kingdom that cost less than 5, I'm looking at something like Cutpurse or Militia or something like that.
Discard attack's a big deal.
Yeah, that can help you along. Actually, really any terminal silver that can do anything at all is good. So you might actually even buy Fortune Teller.
Yeah. That Chancellor, huh?
Yeah, that's Chancellor.
Rip in peace.
Yeah.
We hardly knew you.
because we never bought you.
Too soon.
Not
Too
soon enough, even.
Too soon.
So, you also need to rely on very low expected payload for your opponent before the game ends. That means that your opponent can't really be able to reliably gain provinces in any way. Your main tool for that is the curses that you're disrupting him with.
Yeah.
So, here's the thing about gaining curses. Gaining curses... Not all curse gains are created equal. The longer you have a curse in your deck, the more times you're going to draw it. And that's actually the bad part about curses. It's not the negative points, though those suck. It's actually that you draw them, and that's what really sucks. Ill-Gotten Gains is the only card in Dominion that by itself can put a curse into your opponent's deck on the very first shuffle.
Messenger says hi.
Other than Messenger. So, Ill-Gotten Gains, if you can open with it on turn 1, or if you went first and you get it on turn 1 or 2, then that actually is the optimal time to put a curse into your opponent's deck, because they're going to draw it the most times throughout the game.
Yeah, it feels really bad to just get wrecked because there was a curse in your deck, and what were you going to do about that? I've had that happen to me. I lost multiple games.
Yeah.
Someone just gave me a curse, and I just couldn't hit 5 ever. Just never happened.
It can really do that. Imagine if you had 4 estates, and one of them was not worth a point, and was worth a negative. Imagine if you had a curse in your deck.
Imagine, that's basically the same thing as gaining a lab. Or
right, or
losing a lab. Losing a lab
on turn.
Yeah, it's like trashing a lab.
So, we've talked a lot about the ups and downs of the IG strategy, like the reasons that it's good, the reasons that it's not so good. When we're talking
more
about...
reasons that it's not so good.
And we talked about that. Let's talk about some things that encourage you to go for it or to not go for it.
What do you think of Bank?
What do I think of Bank?
Yeah, you think IG with Bank is good?
No.
You gain a copper to hand, and then your bank is worth more.
Bank into a gold. Yeah. No, it's terrible.
Oh yeah. Why is it terrible?
What? How did you hit 7?
Oh yeah. Okay, right.
And also, the entire point of Bank is that you draw a bunch of cards and have plus buy, and then that makes that 7 cost treasure worth it. But
oh yeah.
Yeah. So no, not Bank.
Okay, not Bank. So, like, the other use case, which actually happens a lot, like, I think this is where IG is actually good most of the time, and I see it frequently, is, like, say there's other junking attacks on the board.
Yeah, okay, like there's Mountebank.
Yeah, so, like, there's this other attack on the board, and that's your main... Oh, yeah. Melinda. Oh,
Margaret.
God. Margaret. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I really, there's only room for one woman in my life, and that's my wife. And,
yeah.
But anyway.
Adam's a married woman, and...
What?
Adam's a married man.
I'm very in touch with my feminine side, but, there's some parts of my life. Anyway. So, a lot of times this other junking attack is happening, and you want to give the last couple of curses, and maybe you're not going to see your junking attack. So you can just get an IG to shove the last couple curses into your opponent's deck, and then, that can tip the scales one way or the other. That can be pretty useful and certainly worth putting the kind of crappy card in your deck in order to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a case where kind of a tactical IG rather than the strategic one that we've been talking about is really viable. So we've been talking about deciding from the get-go that IG is how you're going to win the game. But when there are these other cards that are more important, so IG to clutch out the last 1 or 2 curses can be a pretty powerful buy. And we come back again to IG is one of the more brutal ways to gain a curse because it's kind of on demand. You don't have to buy this cursor and then play it. You just buy it and then the cursing just happens.
Right. So I think a lot of the times this doesn't mean you don't go for the other junker, and
I think it means you definitely do go for the other junker.
Right, and Ig is just something to supplement it at the end.
Yeah.
I think maybe an exception to that would be Familiar sometimes,
Sure.
but that kind of depends on a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, Familiar is one that we are not getting into in this episode, but is kind of akin to these other cards in that it's a very high opportunity cost trasher, or junker.
Yeah, that's the potion's a big deal, and you can get the curses in sooner. And even then, I'm not suggesting that rushing the Igs is very good. This is particularly good against an opponent that's going for Familiar, because you can even stop them from hitting 3 potion, right? If you can throw some curses in there, it's harder for them to buy the Familiar. And then I'm not really committed to necessarily putting all 10 of the curses in their deck, because that's unrealistic.
Yeah.
But like
most of the time,
I'm buying other good cards to put in my deck, and I'm trying to buy provinces at that point.
Sure. Yeah, and you have to decide to clutch out the last couple of curses with Ig. You need to decide that those curses are actually important. You need to decide that the curse split is really important, and a lot of the time it isn't. Like, if I am looking at the last few curses and I've already trashed a bunch of them, like with Chapel or Steward, and I hit 5, I'm probably not going to buy the Ig if those tools to just trash the curse are there anyway.
It's really easy to make the comparison of, like, I'm going to add a lab to my deck because I can just draw those extra curses one time, trash them because I have control over my deck.
Right.
And now I've got this lab in my deck. And that's better than, not buying the lab, but buying this crappy card and then giving my opponent a curse that probably doesn't hurt them all that much either.
Now, I do want to come back to something. Adam had said that he typically will ignore ill-gotten gains if there is any trashing at all. I disagree with that. So
any curse trashing.
Right. So we talk about obviously. we talk about a lot of the trashing in the game, and it kind of comes at a cost too. So not all trashing is really good for thinning out curses. If you're looking at something really expensive like Alter, or the only trashing is Develop, or even Remodel, not everything wants to hit curses, and even if it does want to hit curses, every curse that they have to trash with it is something else that they wanted to trash that they didn't get to. So junking your opponent in those cases can slow them down quite a bit.
Alter's kind of a weird example because it gains fibers.
Yeah, but it's hard to get it.
Fiber can be Ig.
Right, that's true.
If I'm playing an Ig game with you, and Ig is the only junker, and Alter is the only trasher, I'm going to be very happy if I hit 6 early, and I'm going to get that Alter, and I'm going to crush you because I hit 6.
If you happen to do that, yeah. Sure.
And I'm gonna open double silver, and I'm gonna hope real hard that it happens.
Yeah, that's the thing though, is that in an Ig game, if your opponent's junking you with Ig, ever getting 6 is kind of getting 6 by the time you need to.
I think it's probably gonna happen.
Take for granted.
Because like if you're gonna go for duchies too,
eventually
Alter gains duchies.
Well, okay,
We'd have to be pretty late in the game for me to not want that Alter.
Yeah,
and hitting
right.
6 isn't super unlikely. Like, I can just gain a copper sometimes and make it happen.
Yeah, that's true. So, the other thing that actually definitely encourages you to go for Ig and commit to using Ig to end the game and win, and we've talked about this a little bit already, are green cards that are in the kingdom. Specifically ones that cost less than 5. The thing about the IGG rush and getting the duchies are actually a really bad option for that. It's just your kind of cheapest one that makes sense. You're probably not going to want to go for estates. And like hitting 5 all the time, once you've got those green cards and copper is your only money, is not super reliable. So if there is something in the kingdom like, I think the bottom of the barrel is Tunnel, but you could also look at Gardens or Mill, and then you're much happier.
Well, Mill's great because it helps you hit 5.
Mill is fantastic for that deck.
Its pointiness is somewhat less important than its ability, I think. Tunnel, High Duchy. But, like, I think Gardens is tippy top. Like, Gardens can be worth a lot of points, and they're super great. Silk Roads? I'm really not sold on the Silk Roads here.
It's a 4-cost pile that only has 8 cards in it.
Okay.
And it
Duchy's
some
pretty
points. Right, I'm saying, but the Silk Roads are going to be easier to hit every single turn. You might miss Duchy. You're not going to miss Silk Road.
Silk Roads are going to be worth, what, 2 points each?
Yeah, they're going to be worth some points.
That's worse than Tunnel.
Might be worse than Tunnel.
Yeah.
But anyway, the idea is that if there is another source of points that's more efficient than estates are bad. But
Man,
if you,
I really think it's only gardens here.
I actually will say that estates aren't always bad. One phenomenal piece of support is Baron for the IGG deck.
Oh,
Yeah.
Excuse me?
I'm big on this. Here's the thing with Baron and Ill-Gotten Gains, and Adam doesn't agree. You can already hear it.
Tell me
voice.
Tell me how you're gonna line up that Baron with that estate in an
You don't have to. You don't have to do that. The thing is, I win the IGG split, and there's 2 piles down. I play Baron. I'm either getting a bunch of money, that's great, or I'm buying 2 estates. I am zeroing down that 3rd pile like that.
What? How did that go again?
Like that.
Wow, I've never tried that technique in a game of Dominion.
Yeah, you gotta do it really fast. Like that.
The first one, yeah, that one was pretty good.
Yeah, it was a good snap.
You've obviously had some practice with this.
Yeah. I played a lot of IGG games.
I mean, Baron's good in the beginning of the game, but man, I'm not sold on it
with
being
it in
like
a silver. Yeah.
a prime Ig enabler. Ig just doesn't seem like the best place for Baron here, man.
We gotta play some games with IGG and Baron. It's actually the thing is, it speeds up the Ig.
I think it's worse than Fortune Teller.
I will
be Baron
very
can kind
happy
Baron
to
kind of
disabuse you of that
No.
notion.
No, yeah, let's simulate Baron Ig versus Fortune Teller Ig. I bet Fortune Teller Ig wins more.
I'll be very happy to disabuse you of that.
All right, let's go.
Yep.
I'm just making this up, but like I think my money's on Fortune Teller.
All right.
Bring it.
Yeah.
Okay, so so I guess there's a couple of other things that have synergy. Taxman is kind of decent.
Yeah.
Because
it can gain golds.
Well, it can gain Igs.
Oh,
you
right.
can Taxman
Sure.
an Ig into an Ig,
And
which is pretty good because of the attack, right? It's got that discard attack feature on it as well.
Sure.
So Taxman and Ig, they do have a little bit of synergy. It does kind of help.
Well, it depends on what you're doing at that point. Because if you've decided that you want to win in a more traditional method, then tax-manning the Ig into a gold might be better.
It depends on if there's purples left, right?
Sure.
And depends on if you think they have an Ig in hand or whatever. But it can be a good thing to do. There is synergy there. Coppersmith, rip in peace. Ig Coppersmith used to actually be good back in the day.
Yeah.
Thief. I mean, Thief Ig is actually like redonk in games with more than 2 players.
Games with what?
Yeah, more than 2 players. I mean, Thief was actually good in those games, but
yeah, right.
Ig is actually quite good because if you hit their Ig, then you get the Ig and you've gained it, so you give them the purples. So that's kind of cool.
That does actually sound super annoying.
Yeah.
And I've never had that happen to me, but I'm kind of glad.
I actually won a tournament game.
Really?
Yeah, using Thief. There was Gardens too, so like Thief Gardens was good enough.
Okay.
But Ig was also in the mix. Yeah.
Yeah, so the times when you'll definitely avoid IGG like the plague are, or at least you'll...
Most of the time, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the time. We've already gone over really robust trashing, but a lot of the time you'll definitely avoid working Ig into your endgame is when there's another cursing attack. I know a lot of the times that means you'll buy Ig to clutch out the curse pile, but if you're trying to end the game with Ig, the other cursing attack, unlinking those curses from the Ig pile, means that the Ig player has to spend a $5 buy on something that's not winning the game.
Yeah, that feels bad. For a moment, you talked about like Ig in the end game, and I'm like, oh, is this because everything is the end game with you? No, that's not.
No, the other thing that definitely, like, cards that by themselves hard counter Ig to the point that you don't even really want to consider it. Ambassador, your opponent gives the curses right back to you.
That's all junking attacks, really.
Yeah, Masquerade. Masquerade doesn't
Yeah.
counter all junking attacks like this, but definitely Ig doesn't do it enough to...
Sure.
Matter.
I mean, Masquerade counters Ig just like it counters other junking attacks.
Right. And Trader. Trader is the hardest counter to Ig, in my opinion, because it stops the curse from even happening.
Yeah, it's weird, though, because, like, Trader and Ig have synergy.
Yeah, right?
So, like, a lot of times you just do it anyway, because the Ig isn't really that bad in that deck.
Right.
You collide Ig and Trader, and now you have options. You can either Trader the Ig for 55 silvers. I know it's only 55 silvers, though.
Yeah.
Or you can not play the Trader and then, like, gain coppers and then Trader, reveal, and gain silvers instead, which is pretty neat. I mean, you don't get them in hand, but, like, you get options and you can silver flood decently that way. So Trader Ig is weird.
That's fair, and I hadn't really thought about that dynamic. I do know that it definitely kind of shuts down the attack. Basically anything that unlinks a curse from the Ig pile kind of shuts down the attack, not in terms of happening, it shuts down the attack's ability to win the game.
Yeah, sure. That'll crap all over the Ig rush.
Yeah. And then in a mirror match, it's a little different. It's pretty much luck, like most mirror matches are. The thing is, if you and your opponent both do the same thing and execute it similarly, it doesn't really even matter what it is. It's going to kind of come down to luck. And
first player advantage.
Right, and an IgG rush isn't really much of an exception to that. The ways that you could give yourself an edge if you're both going for it are identifying a better support card, like a better terminal silver than your opponent bought for the rush, or, managing the shuffles a little bit better, but mostly it's going to be luck.
Yeah, I think in the mirror, though, like, games are won a lot of times by who can spike a province more.
Yeah.
So if there's any kind of support that helps you do that, like a draw card or something.
Sure.
Getting a lucky province or getting more lucky provinces. Lucky being, you make your own shuffle lucky provinces.
Right.
If you can set yourself up to do that, that's usually how the mirrors are decided.
Yeah. And I know I said that Militia is decent support for an IgG rush strategy. It's also pretty bad to hamper it, too. Any discard attack. So 3-card hands suck. 3-card hands suck even more when your deck sucks. Yeah, if you're relying on having a hand size of 5 and those coppers are the 5 that hit you Dutchy, well, Militia's, that's not happening. Your opponent plays Militia.
Sorry, brah.
Yep. Yeah.
You got anything else to say about Ig?
No, not really. Cool. I think we've covered Ig as much as it can be covered. Please let us know if you've used it to some avail in some way we haven't talked about.
Yeah, let's move on to Melissa.
Melissa Grit.
Melba?
Murray.
Murray.
Sure.
Let's move on to Murray.
Oh, definitely buy IgG if Keep is out. Okay, so Sea Hag.
Sweet.
Yeah, so Sea Hag.
You can open with Sea Hag a lot of time.
Yeah.
And it does nothing. And that feels bad.
Yeah. So
it doesn't help you at 5, and like if there's another junker that costs 5, I don't want it.
Sea Hag reduces your hand size by 1 when you play it and takes up a terminal action.
It's bad.
It's reducing the potency of your turns when you play it by a lot.
It's a bad card, man.
The thing about Sea Hag is playing it and buying it is going to slow you down from the things you want to do. The idea and the reason you would do it is that it slows your opponent down more.
That usually means that they can't get rid of the curses.
Yeah.
Or that it costs more for them to get rid of the curses than it costs you to put the curse in their deck.
Correct, yes.
So, like, I buy a Sea Hag, you buy something that trashes cards. Okay, that was roughly the same. And now I play the Sea Hag, you get a purple. So when you play the thing that trashes the purple, we kind of want it to do more for your deck than my Sea Hag did for me. Which isn't hard, because the Sea Hag does absolutely nothing for me and takes up an action.
Right, if you can do as good as nothing.
God, Melinda. Sorry.
Yeah, she struggles sometimes. So Sea Hag, again, is one of the only pure attacks in Dominion, and those really need to be super brutal for your opponent, because, like Adam said, they don't do anything for you.
Yeah. But Adam, if I discard your Sea Hag with my Sea Hag, then I'm gonna win the game! Well, yeah, you are. And there's like a 1 in 12 chance of that happening, and I'm not gonna play around that.
Right, that's true. Sea Hag can, a lot of the times when the curse split is important and Sea Hag is powerful, be a really swingy and random card based on what it happens to mill, the same way Swindler can, but a lot of the time that means that you actually buy 2 Sea Hags and just ignore the problem altogether.
I gotta be honest with you, it's a lot better than Swindler, because Sea Hag is just like one incredibly unlikely outcome that like gets you right between the legs, right?
Yeah.
And Swindler is like a somewhat common outcome, or maybe a somewhat uncommon, like, oh, I hit your estate, that like it gets you right between the legs, but it's way less effective to whine about that because it's so much more likely to have like a bad outcome for you than like, oh, you hagged my hag. That was unlikely, and it sucked.
And
whining about that is way better.
That's true. It's important to identify the things that you want to whine about at the beginning of the game so that you're ready when they happen.
You know what? He may be kidding, but like. That's a core philosophy I have.
So, yeah, I mean, Sea Hag is...
Look at you trying to move on. Keep us on track. No!
No!
Whining!
Oh, God.
So yeah, it costs me more to trash the curses than it costs you to play the Sea Hag. Maybe I don't want to. Maybe that means I don't ignore the Sea Hag. So like, what does the Curse Trasher do for me?
Yeah, and a lot of the time, if that's it trashed its 2 cards, then what the Curse Trasher did for you is trash the curse and trash a card, which is really good.
Yeah, so like you have to take into consideration that like they just had to draw 1 Sea Hag, and then they got to play it, and you have a curse. You actually have to draw your trasher with the curse, which isn't always going to happen.
Yeah.
But, like, that's what makes cards that trash multiple cards. Like, I'm looking at Steward, Chapel Remake, those guys.
Things that don't need to trash from your hand are also a worthy consideration, like Hermit.
Sure. That's a little more difficult, because Sea Hag top decks the curse, but I mean, Lookout, I think, is a little better of an example. So you don't have to actually draw it. Or the trashers that are non-terminal, essentially, so that you can play more than 1 per turn. So now I just pick up 2 of them, and now I'm thinning faster than you're junking me.
Yeah.
At the end of that, I'm going to have a better deck. So maybe I'm not going to get the Sea Hag. Although we're starting to get into the gray area. The other one is to look at the other benefit that trasher's going to give you. So I'm looking at Bishop. Hey, I get VP tokens. That's pretty nice. Mm-hmm. Or Trade is pretty sweet. You get silvers, and silver's a good card.
Right.
That
implies, though, that you hit 5 and had a curse in hand.
Yeah. I hit 5 all the time, bro.
Do you even hit 5, bro? Sorry, Adam hits 5 all the time.
Yeah,
he's the world champion.
Yeah. So, like, now, if you're looking for the other, the darker gray here, I'm going to look at some of the night cards, like Monastery or Exorcist. These cards, they don't take up an action, but they're harder to play multiples of in a turn. They don't really do anything besides trashing the curse, or like a Trade Route or a Catapult that, doesn't really give you anything relevant for trashing that curse, but, also takes an action. These are the ones where, yes, I'm going to go for them because curses suck and I want them gone, but I'm probably also going to go for the Sea Hag in this case. So Melbalina here is not completely ignorable.
Yeah, poor Melbande. She is, So, it's worth noting something else about the cursing attack of Sea Hag, and just to speak to how brutal of an attack it can be sometimes. We talked before with Ig about how not every gained curse is equal in terms of the impact it has. And Ig is impactful as a curse giver because it does so on demand, and it can do so from turn 1 or 2. Sea Hag puts the curse on top of your deck. Remember that curses are compoundingly bad based on the number of times you draw them. Any curse that Sea Hag gives you versus a curse you got some other way is a curse you're drawing 1 more time than if you had just gained it to your discard pile. Meaning that Sea Hag can be seen to be, in some ways, a more brutal attack than something like Witch, the benefit of Witch aside. So that's kind of the trade-off, is that you're playing a worse card for a better attack. I don't know. Do you have anything else to say about Sea Hag?
No, I think me and Melissa are about done here.
I've given them all M names, and we haven't used Megan yet.
Yeah, that's because Megan is the only one for me.
All right.
So that was a great haddock sandwich from the sea.
What is haddock?
It's a type of fish.
Oh, good. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like a squeeze of lemon juice or maybe a little bit of malt vinegar if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah, I could get into some malt vinegar.
Yeah, lemon juice with the tartar sauce, but malt vinegar on its own. Now I want some malt vinegar. But it's, I gotta tell you, I'm gonna need the heel of this delicious lobster roll bread.
Yeah.
That we have going on here.
I have no idea what we're eating at this point.
It's a fish sandwich, Jake.
All right, great. So, Apothecary, Loan, Bridge, Cutpurse, Noble Brigand, Sea Hag, Bazaar, Outpost, Tactician, Witch, and the event Annex. Once more, for our audio-only listeners or anybody who wasn't really prepared for me to just jump in like that, we have Apothecary, Loan, Bridge, Cutpurse, Noble Brigand, Sea Hag, Bazaar, Outpost, Tactician, Witch, and we have an event Annex. Obviously, because there's Apothecary out, potions are available too.
Yeah, look at that Apothecary Loan synergy. It's so delicious.
Loan can trash coppers, and it can hit potion, and you can decline to trash the potion because you bought it so you could get apothecaries.
Oh, I was thinking
it's so good.
You use Apothecary to draw all your coppers and potions, and then nothing is left for your loan to trash except for the non-copper treasures.
And then loan just gives you money with no downside.
It's so good.
All right.
Boom! Oh, such synergy.
Man, okay, so what are we doing on this board?
There's two ways to give your opponent curses, and there's no way to trash curses.
Right.
So cursing is important, especially because if you don't curse your opponent, then they can play this double Tactician deck with Bazaars and Bridges and Outposts and just run over you.
Yeah, but if you do try to play that deck and you haven't really respected the cursing, you are going to have a very bad time. Yeah, your opponent's going to play Big Money Witch and destroy you.
Yes, well, I mean...
Or Big Money Sea Hag or whatever.
I guess. Big Money Witch is certainly better because Witch is a better card than Sea Hag. But...
Yeah, and I think on a 5-2 you're definitely opening Witch.
For sure. I think on a 4-3 I'm opening Witch by cheating. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
I'm going to open with two cards that help me get a Witch, so I'm looking at probably Cutpurse and Silver.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I might actually go for the Sea Hag Silver instead or Sea Hag Loan because the thing is...
Cutpurse Loan. Yeah, okay. I want Cutpurse Loan, but yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I might go with Sea Hag Loan because the loan is going to help me thin to play the Sea Hag more, and like we said, Sea Hag is a pretty brutal card, especially early on, because it's making you draw the curse immediately, and also you get to open with it. Okay. It's going to help you win the curse split.
The more I think about it, like, if I'm going to get a Sea Hag, I think the Silver is probably a better card for the deck, because what you don't want to do is just, like, trash all your economy and then... not have anything left and just have a deck that plays Sea Hag. I don't think that's good. Well,
you stop before then. You stop trashing with loan before that point.
But if I'm giving you curses, you're gonna have a hard time like hitting 3 sometimes.
But I think I might get there before you start giving me curses if you've committed to Witch being your cursor.
Well, I mean there are worlds where I don't hit 5 and I'm sad, but even then I think Witch is a better card. I'm going for Witch. I think Cutpurse is a good card to open with to get me to a Witch. I think Witch is fine here.
Yeah. Cutpurse if you go first too is pretty good too.
Because it does nerfs get a lot better.
Nerfs if you have first player advantage, buying the Cutpurse guarantees that you nerf money out of your opponent's hands. So that I could actually see being a really legitimate consideration. That
you could actually see being a legitimate Sea Hag.
Ignorable. All right.
I don't think Sea Hag's good here because of Witch.
No, I mean like
I'm sticking to my guns, man.
I think Sea Hag is going to be a good way to get the jump on the curse split.
All right, good for you. I look forward to crushing you in these Baron Ig games with Fortune Teller, and also on this board by not getting Sea Hag.
All right. I'm going to open Outpost Copper.
Take that, Marissa.
So,
Take that, Marissa.
Take it. I'm buying Marissa. All right, so...
Yeah, that's. I think that's about all I got for this podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, that's about all I got too.
We should tease the next episode because we've actually decided.
Oh yeah, you got a YouTube comment on one of your videos asking for something in particular, asking where it was even.
Yeah, so it's been like 5 months since Nocturne was released, and I haven't talked about it. And there's a good reason. Donald X has asked me not to talk about it, so I'm not talking about it. But he said it was okay. Reason being, I did playtest the expansion a little bit, and it's been long enough for people to discover things on their own without some guy who thinks he knows what he's talking about. Telling you what he thinks, and regardless of how wrong I am, there's good reasons why I shouldn't be blabbing soon. So it's time for me to blab.
Yeah, so you'll have Adam who thinks he knows what he's talking about, and you'll have me who knows I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to be talking anyway.
Yeah.
So
we're going to talk about the Nocturne cards.
Yeah, Nocturne cards.
Also, I wanted to give a shout out. We didn't address this in the audio version last week, but I did put something in the video portion of our video podcast about the card images that are displayed along with our voices.
Right. Our silky caramel baritone voices.
That sounds delicious. I want some ice cream now with silky caramel baritone syrup voices on it. That's not weird.
Voices in your...
Let's just go with cookie dough.
So yeah,
cookie dough ice cream.
You can't go wrong with cookie dough.
Yeah, it's pretty delish. But anyway, a lot of people commented, and they said they like the images, and I'm going to continue to do them. But thank you for actually commenting.
Yeah,
it's nice to know that people out there are watching. So if you're listening to this or watching it on the video podcast, leave a comment or post in the forums. Go to adamhorton.com, post in the forums there. We like hearing from you. We like hearing what you think about the kingdoms and all sorts of other stuff. And particularly after next episode, you can tell us how wrong we were about things and exactly what things we were wrong about.
And I
can't wait.
Yeah, no, I can't wait either, because I've had even less time to form these inept opinions about Nocturne cards than I have about most of Dominion.
Sweet.
So I'm going to have even worse things to say than I normally do.
Yeah, it's going to be super exciting.
Yeah. You get to be so right by correcting me.
Yes, and that's different than normal... How? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think that's all I got to say.
Yeah, same.
Well, thanks for listening.
All right.
We'll catch you next time here on Making Luck, the Dominion Podcast.
More brutal attack than something like Witch, the benefit of Witch aside. So that's kind of the trade-off, is that you're playing a worse card for a better attack. Adam is mesmerized by the cat.
We'll probably edit this out, but this is adorable.
What's he trying to do?
He's trying to get up here where the window's open.
And do what? And leave? What's he gonna leave?
No, there's a screen up there, but he's not good at jumping. We haven't encouraged him to jump.